The 50 Podcast.
50 Podcast.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to the 50 Podcast. It's your host, Haley, and today we are here with Michelle. This Bay Area girl is a former law enforcement officer who has experienced quite a bit during her career. She's a police wife, now a background investigator for police agencies, and a stepmom. I can't wait for you to get to know her and her journey. So for our listeners, will you give us a quick bio just about you? And then we will peel back the layers on everything we talked about above and more.
Okay, so I grew up in the Bay Area, California, and same house my whole life, raised by my mom and dad. I don't have any siblings, so only child. But my dad was always, on me, like, you're gonna get good grades and you're gonna, do something with your life. So I started working when I was 14. My dad said, "Hey, if you want to start driving when you're 16, you're gonna need to have some money for insurance."
You know what? We need to keep doing that with kids now these days.
Absolutely. That's one thing I'll say is, like, I'm old school in that sense now. I'm like, no, 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 no. We need to, teach financial literacy and all that stuff. But yeah, I started working when I was 14. I was a swim instructor. And then just from there, I've always worked. I went to college, did a junior college stint for a couple of years, and then I transferred to a state college down in Southern California. And then when I was going there, I was going to be an English teacher. That was my path. I'd always said, "Oh yeah, I'm going to go teach English in high school." I don't know if you remember that movie. I think her name was Erin. It was a teacher, and she was like the fabulous teacher who just, helped all these kids. And it was based out of Long Beach. So it was down there in Southern California too.
Okay.
I'm like, I'm going to be like her. And then when I'm in college, I'm like in my last year, and I'm just like, this isn't going to work out. I don't think I'm going to be happy as a teacher. So I was doing a program where it was like a pen pal for a group of students in inner city school. It's basically like a mentoring type thing. And the kids were great. I liked interacting with them and being kind of a role model for them. But I got to really see like the public school system and just how things were. I'm like, no, I got to find something else. So I finished my degree. But the reason I switched was literally seeing a police car that said now hiring. And I went on a ride along and I was like, hey, it's kind of like I can work with youth still as a cop and,
100%. Yeah.
But it's different. I mean, it's going to be always changing and there's a lot of stuff going on. So I definitely surprised my parents. I don't know, especially my mom was like, "What? You sure you want to do that?" Like, I'm like, "Yeah, I'm going to go for it." I think I was always pretty headstrong on, like, once I decided I was going to do something, like being independent and moving to Southern California and doing all those things. It's like, that's the route I was going to take. So yeah, that's what led me to law enforcement.
I love that. So many of our stories that lead us to law enforcement are always so random. Like, I feel like it just kind of like it comes to us. Like you usually don't seek it out. It just kind of like it comes to you. Like it's a calling. Like they say it's a calling. You don't choose it. It just chooses you. But we're going to go over your family life and growing up. You touched on it a little bit, only child. Tell us about just like growing up in the Bay Area, being an only child. What were your parents' careers growing up?
It's funny because I've been asked that before, and I'm like, my dad was like, I don't know, he worked at some commercial plant, and then when they shut down, he worked on like cleaning, like they had to clean out the ground and stuff like that. So, and then my mom, she worked for a company in Silicon Valley for a while, and then there were a bunch of layoffs. She got laid off. I think she stayed home for a little bit with me, and then she ended up working for a grocery store until she retired. So,
And since you were the only child, because my parents were were, I would say strict for me, but they probably weren't strict compared to like an average parent. But since I was the oldest, they were the strictest on me. I can't imagine being an only child, but I feel like that might help better prepare you to be in law enforcement, just having like that, strict upbringing. Do you think that it did help you or did it
I
not help
think
you?
I think it helped. I would say that in some ways it was harder because not having siblings, you don't have the same like you always have to work as a team, right? In law enforcement. And then I know that there's a lot of people who they do team sports through their whole life and then they go into law enforcement and it's like it's cake because they did that. But it's like that is actually a little bit of an adjustment that I had was, I didn't do that. I was working through high school, so I didn't do sports. And so but the strictness, yeah, it did help me like stick to my goals and like definitely I was always respectful and being on time is important and all those things. Like definitely had a lot instilled in me that helped. But there's also a lot that I picked up on once I was actually in it in the academy. So
That makes sense though, like being on time, being respectful, all of that. But then you're right. I can see, the other factors like, working with a lot of other people, sharing ideas, being like really like team environment would be a little bit different. But all things you can adjust to. And I'm sure you enjoyed being around a lot of people after being like an only child.
yeah,
Had a second family almost in
I
law
think even
enforcement.
now it's still something I struggle with because now I live with my husband and we have our family and everything and it's like that's an adjustment too because I've been out on my own like and then it was like, "Oh, you share this space now and, you can't have everything your way."
Do you
So
not share your food? I know so many only children like do not let other people eat off their plates.
I don't mind. I don't yeah.
Oh, okay, okay. You're one of the good ones then. So, you told us why, you were inspired to become a police officer. You saw that truck or that car, we're hiring. You went on the ride along. Tell us your background in policing.
So down in Southern California, I went on the ride along. It was with Los Angeles Sheriff's Department, and I actually really liked it. So I was like, okay, yeah, I think I'm gonna keep pursuing this. And I applied for, I think it was a sheriff's department, not as a deputy. It was something a little bit lower level, but just I was trying to get my foot in the door. I mean, back then it was I would say it was 2013. It was actually hard to get into law enforcement, they really
Really hard back then. Yeah.
weeded people out, and so if you had any little thing in your background, so the first thing I went to one of those hiring days, and I sat down in front of somebody with my background, and they were like, "Oh, the last time you smoked weed was, too close of time." Which to me, it just
Which
blows
was
my
like
mind now.
a million years ago.
We can't even ask if somebody's done that now.
Are you serious?
In California, you can't ask
Oh, I was
because
gonna say they still ask that in Illinois.
so I was like, dang, I was super discouraged, but then at the same time I was like, well, I still have to find something. I gotta keep pushing. So I was working at a retail store at the time. So I just, okay, I'm gonna keep working there. And then I think at that point I said, okay, it's time to come back home. Went back to the Bay Area and I transferred my job. So I was working at this retail store. And one day a cop from that city came in and he was looking at stuff. And I'm like, hey, by the way, I've been trying to get into law enforcement. So he gave me his card. He said, hey, come on right along. He actually mentored me for a while after that, and went
That's
on
really
several
cool.
several ride-alongs with him, and trying to think. So then I started applying in the Bay Area, and I applied for the department that that officer worked for. Got really far in the process, which was crazy because, you start off and, at that department, it was you do an oral board. So you sit in front of 3 people, 3 officers, sergeants, whatever, positions they were. But you sit in front of them and they're asking you these questions and you're going up against a few hundred people. And I made it through. So I was like, okay, wow, this was my first one, but here I go. And I did the physical agility test. It went down to, it was I think 10 of us doing the physical agility from the few hundred, like they pulled.
Wow.
So then I passed the physical agility. I came in, I met with the commander, and everything went well. And he's like, is there anything that you would like to disclose before we move forward and do your polygraph? And I'm like, well, I have to say, the last time I spoke to you. So, and so I tell him that, and he was like, oh, are you sure it was, is that the date? Because we have a strict 3-year policy, like from the last time you did. And I said, yeah, that's it. He said, okay, well, let me check. Let me double check and we'll give you a call. So they double check. They call me. Are you sure? And I'm like, the one thing they always tell you, do not lie. Do not change your answer.
Do not lie. Yes.
I am sure that was the date. Okay, well, sorry, we can't hire you or we can't move forward with you because it's 3 years. I was crushed because I'm like, "What?" Like, and that feeling of like, "Oh, my life is over. I can't get anything right," And
Oh my God, the worst. And for people listening who haven't gone through the process, it's a long process to get into a police department. It's not a 2-week thing. So I can only imagine.
I say it like, "Oh, I did the oral board and then I did this." It was still months of like, "Oh, you have this appointment, then you have this appointment." It wasn't instant. It took a while, and then by the time I got to that interview, it had been at least a couple months. And I went back to that officer that had been mentoring me. I said, "Oh, this is what happened. They told me they couldn't hire me." He was like, "That is BS. You are a good candidate. They should have just, moved forward, but it is what it is." Even the people I had met on the ride-alongs, the other officers were like, "That's crazy. Like, you are actually a good candidate. So keep applying everywhere." So I did. I was applying left and right. Um, I'm sure you've heard of Oakland, right? So, not a good city, particularly to work in, but he said go everywhere, so I just okay. I applied there, did their test. They were like, "Okay, next date is, 2 months from then." I'm like, "Okay, whatever. I'm just applying. I'm trying to get my foot in the door." And then it was the waiting game of, hearing from people. So, um, I was gonna join the military. I went to an army recruiting office, did my ASVAB, had my
Wow.
score and everything, filled out my background packet, and then they said, "Oh, you had LASIK surgery in December. You have to be cleared 6 months from the time you had your surgery." So that was around February.
God.
I'm like, "Are you kidding me? Like what?" Like it just felt like, everything was just not going the way I wanted it to go, right? But um, looking back, everything does have a purpose and why things happen the way they happen. And so, that didn't work out. They're like, well, in June you can come back and this and that. And I'm thinking, like, if I get anything else in the meantime, I'm just going to go with that. I'm not going to wait around on the army.
Right. Right.
So I want to say it was spring and I got contacted by another agency. They wanted to interview me, move forward with me. So I said, okay, well, if this works out, this is the route I'm going to take. And sure enough, it did. By the time I got to backgrounds and they sat down and looked at it,
It had been 3 years.
they said, by the time you graduate the academy, it'll be 3 years. We're good with that because by the time you're on the streets, it's 3 years. I was like, thank you. So, yeah,
God, and crazy that they don't even care about it now.
I know. It's crazy now that I've done some backgrounds now and looking at what people can get through with, and I'm like, this is mind blowing. But we need officers so badly now. I mean, after 2020, it's just people don't want to do it anymore. So, um, yeah, I got picked up with that agency. I did have a setback. I was supposed to start September 2014, and then I got injured right before the academy. So there, you gotta,
Gosh.
you gotta take a couple months off, because if you go into the academy that I was supposed to go to, or what I ended up going to, a lot of hills on the running and everything. So they're like, yeah, if you do with this injury, you're gonna end up setting yourself back even more. So I waited a couple months, and then I started January 2015. Went through the academy. Um, I was in for a major shock, like, because to me, I took it so seriously. I didn't realize all these things were a game of, like, I don't know what they call them in other places, but they call them RTOs, so recruit training officers. So
Okay.
they were in charge of the academy. So the RTOs, I mean, they would do anything and everything. Oh, you're carrying your bag in your right hand. You better write me a 10-page paper on why you shouldn't do that. And you never forget that again. You never carry anything in your right hand again if you're dominant with your right hand. So, um, just everything, like the physical stuff, mental, all of it. But it got me prepared. So by the time, I actually went to the department, which was July 2015, I was more ready. But streets are just different. It's I don't know that the academy can prepare you for
I
it.
don't think so. I don't think anything can prepare you.
Yeah, when you do, I mean, they have us do scenarios all the time, and I remember always being like very anxious about them, because I'm like, what if I don't do it this way or that way? When you go to the streets, you cannot predict anything that's going to happen. So you can try to have your game plan and everything and backup options, but you have to just roll with it once you're out there. So,
100%.
yeah, July 2015, my second day, I wasn't even on the streets. I was just doing in-house orientation, and sergeant was killed my second morning of at that department. So um it was a big wake up call, because I was aware, I was seeing law enforcement, line of duty deaths all the time, but when it's in your face like that and everybody in the department is affected by it, um and I went to my first funeral before I had even gone to the streets. So it was definitely like, okay, I have to take this seriously. And I didn't know the sergeant, but in my mind, it was everything I was doing. I kept thinking, it's like, he's not here anymore. I have to work harder to step my game up, whether it's in my physical fitness, being in shape. I don't want to be that cop that's like can't keep up or is in a fight and, just gives out because they're not able to keep fighting. Um, Shooting classes, like the sergeant who was killed, he was SWAT, and he was all on his A game and everything. So in my mind, I was not like I was going to be SWAT, but it was, I need to make sure I'm doing more than what's just given to you, because even here, I mean, I know California has a little bit higher standards. Even the amount of training you get is not what it should be. You don't shoot as much as you should. You don't go do defensive tactics training as much as you should. So I was
Right.
doing stuff on my own
Right.
because I just wanted to, make sure. And I think even as a female cop, it's even harder because we aren't as strong as men. I mean, you can definitely, I mean, there are some women out there, I mean, that could probably
Yeah.
outkick it, but I'm saying overall, biologically, we're not the same. And so we do have to work harder to be there. And I mean, I used to think, I'm like, if I had to drag somebody out, would I be able to? So that was my kind of training that I would do, because I was just trying to keep up. Um
Once you were in the department, you're on FTO, you get off FTO and you're a police officer. You did peer support at one point for other officers. What attracted you to get into that? And how did that help you and help others when you're on peer support?
I had my own incidents really early on. I had one critical incident on FTO. I had another one less than a year later, which was an officer involved shooting. Those incidents, for me, I had peer support come out after each incident, and there was somebody to sit with me, talk with me, just to make sure that I was doing okay. So after my officer involved shooting, I mean, I remember it was just such a bizarre feeling, like you're trying to process what happened, and you're almost, for me, it was like almost like out of body experience. I mean, I think I was in shock because I'm like, oh, my coffee's still in the car. Oh, my phone is still in the car. It, and it's just things that are like, what, you're just not processing it yet. And then they, anyway, peer support, they make sure that you're eating. So, hey, we'll go get you some food, things like that. And I just remember that that meant a lot to me. And I wanted to be able to do that for somebody else, especially if they're a younger officer, because that was something that was different for me. Was I was so young in the career experiencing these things. And I mean,
And
I
it's so
was,
important now too, I feel like. It's, like, even more now with all, like, the mental health and stuff that's going on. But the fact that you had a good experience with peer support and then you took it upon yourself to become one yourself says a lot. Because I know that there's some people that, me included at times, I will be honest, that don't feel comfortable going to my peers. What would you say to, like, people who don't feel comfortable going to, like, someone that they work with?
I will say there is a fine line on going to your peers at work. You have to be careful who you trust, and who you talk to about these things. It's unfortunate it's that way, but I do believe in having that boundary. And I personally would say, hey, lean on your friends and family. They may not always be able to understand what you're going through, but at the end of the day, they're the ones that you're gonna have after your career.
That's
And
very true.
once you've been around people long enough, and once you see, you just have to pay attention. Who is there to be there for you? And so peer support, I mean, they try to vet people as best as they can on like who's trustworthy, who is not gonna go and talk about what you just said, because you're not supposed to, everything's supposed to be confidential. And that was my experience, was those people that had been there for my peer support in my incidents, they were people that I felt like I could go to if I needed to. And beyond that, I mean, I really got into going to therapy. I did initially have a stress claim, and I tried to go through workers' comp for it. But in all honesty, it was more stressful going through workers' comp for it than it was for me to just say, I'm gonna pay out of pocket and go to my own person. It didn't have to do with trusting. Like, I know some people worry, is a therapist gonna go tell my department, you know, and they're not supposed to? They could. I don't know. So it's, for me, I felt better finding my own person to go to. And I had
I
to go
agree. I agree with that. Mhm.
I had to go through a few. I sought a few therapists, and I finally got the one that I still go to her like every other month, maybe once in a while, just as needed. But I've gone her since 2019. And it wasn't the first time, but I've done a lot of EMDR with her, which is the eye movement desensit desensitization.
Girl, I did one podcast with someone who does EMDR, EDMR, whatever it is, therapy, and when she was telling me about it, I was like, "Oh my god,
Desensit
sounds like
I
pretty
can't say the word.
cool."
And reprocessing. Yes, I was an English major, but I can not say that. So
No, it's
anyway,
okay. I don't know any either.
so that was, I would say, anybody who's gone through an incident, do that. It helps bring a lot of the anxiety down. My OIS was involving an RV, and the RV had hit me. So I used to drive on the freeway or in a parking lot, somebody reversing towards me or getting too close to me in the car, and my whole body would react to it. And I'm like, ugh. And now it's, so basically what it's done is it's reduced all that anxiety. And maybe I will still think about it here and there where, oh, there's a huge big rig that's getting way too close to me on the freeway. And it reminds me of that incident, but I don't feel the same. I'm like, okay, I'm okay. I can process it. I can move on. So it just takes that way down. And the other thing I've done is neurofeedback, which helps because I am diagnosed OCD, so I will just my thoughts will ruminate on the same things, so that's helped a lot too. So either one of those. But if you're a person who doesn't want to sit there and talk to somebody about it, neurofeedback's a good way to start with that because you don't have to
Don't have to
out
jump
there
to it.
talking about it. You literally, I mean, for the place I go to, she turns on Netflix or YouTube and you watch one of those and she does her thing. She's, moving the little electrodes on you and everything. But other than that, that's it.
That's pretty cool. I'll have to look
Yeah.
into that.
Yeah. Because I know, especially law enforcement, a lot of people, they don't want to go and
Yeah.
talk. And
No.
when I started doing that, a lot of my coworkers at my second department, they were doing it as well. And it was a lot of the guys, a lot of the guys that don't want to go and talk. So yeah,
That makes sense.
you could see the difference in them too. Like you could see they're more calm. You see they're more patient. It's just, I think you have to at some point do something in that realm of therapy. Whether you talk, whether you do EMDR, neurofeedback, you do something because you see way too much and you experience way too much. No matter how strong you are as a person, we're all human. So you have to do something to process all that. I mean, I had gone part of like when I did the peer support thing, I found out about a West Coast post trauma retreat. And one of the things they talked about was you have a backpack that you start with as a cop. And each incident you experience, bad call, you know, you, I mean, I had one bad, like, sexual assault involving a 3-year-old and her uncle. I mean, that stuff, that sticks with me still. I think about it and I'm like, who could do that to a 3-year-old? But things like that, all those, they're all rocks in your backpack. And if you don't do anything with it, your backpack gets so weighted down, you won't be able to carry it anymore. And then you get to a point, your friends and family are all affected by it too, because you can't even carry your own
Yep.
weight. So it's about like getting those rocks out of the backpack, like you're processing all that stuff and you're letting go of those things that you've been through. So
That makes a lot of sense. Like the way you put it like that. I like that. It's true. We carry the weight of the world on our shoulders, but we have to like go to work and be everyone's sounding board, be everyone else's rock without if we don't acknowledge what we have on ourselves, how can we be the best for everybody else? But you mentioned you've been through some big critical incidents in your career. This officer involved shooting. Can you tell us a little bit about, or whatever you can tell us? Can you tell us about that day and what happened?
yeah. So I was working night shift and we got a call from a park ranger. So it was dark already. Park ranger, he was like closing up the bathrooms or something, and he got into a confrontation with somebody who had been ramming a bunch of parked cars with his RV. So we go over there, code 3, lights and siren. My cover officer and I. My cover officer got there first. We see the RV. I see my cover officer. He's pretty much like parallel to the RV. And also the park ranger ended up getting pepper sprayed by the guy. So I don't know the
Oh,
suspect.
wow.
I
Okay.
don't know. I don't remember if it was like he took it from the park ranger or he had pepper spray or whatever, but yeah, he got pepper sprayed. Um Now I'm I'm like thinking about it. I'm like, I don't know.
You're
It's so long ago now.
No, you're
There's
good.
something about pepper spray. Okay, one of them, or maybe he pepper sprayed the suspect. I don't remember. But anyway, the guy got back into the RV after this confrontation, and I pull up behind the RV and I see his reverse lights come on, and I'm like, well, what the heck? Like, if anything, he would go forward. It was an open street. Well, he puts it in reverse and just slams on the gas pedal to ram into me. So it pushes me back, and I'm just sitting there like, oh, what the heck do I do? Because if I get out, I mean, I could get hit, all that stuff. So it's like, I'm literally sitting there just like, well, what the heck? And I remember I put out radio traffic that was just like, he's hitting me. And it was very calm, which later on I had people say, we didn't even know that you were involved in the shooting because the way you
You're
were
so
talking,
calm.
which was weird
That's
too.
good that you kept yourself under control, though.
Considering I had a little over a year on at that time. So, I mean, I will say I was proud of how I handled it, because that was one thing they always talked about is don't scream on the radio.
Right,
Going
right.
through things. People need to be able to hear you. They need to know that you're okay. They need to know where you are, all that stuff. So keeping calm was part of it. But then, so after he did that to my car, he turned the RV and went into my cover officer's car on his passenger side, like just slammed into him. And then at that point, he's like positioned in a way, if he goes forward, he's going to go into a house that has like a party going on. So we get out, we engage with the guy while he's in the driver's seat of the RV. Um, he was shot several times, but he survived. Um, there were other things that, later on we saw down the road, like looking at our body camera and everything, that he had actually used a propane tank to shield himself when he was getting shot at, but it was empty. So that's why we didn't have an explosion. Um,
Oh
So
my
he
God.
he tossed it out the window. So in the like, I didn't see any of that when that was happening, but yeah, tossed it out the window. I think the RV, the door, the panels, and everything definitely protected him too, because there's multiple layers and all of that. Charged with 2 counts of assault with a deadly weapon against a police officer, and once he was like cleared from the hospital, he was booked in. He was then released on his own recognizance, and I wanna say somebody saw him, like, out on the street after and was like, "Oh, I saw the guy," and blah, 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 and it was like,
Oh my God.
"What?" And, he never I don't know where he went. He never went back to jail, never went back to court. So that case, I guess, is technically still open. I don't
What?
know. Yeah, this
He was
is
just like on the run.
I guess. 2016. I mean, he was definitely alive and everything, and he was released. So that's
Oh
a
dear
piece of
God.
California for you.
Um, Illinois has some similarities, but I would love to know just like why. Like, why are you like what? Did he had
So
anything
I,
like
I
he
believe
posted online or anything? Just like any clues
no,
onto
I think
why
he
he was doing
pretty
what he
much
was doing?
like to himself, and he was on meth. Because I remember he was when he was interviewed, and he was Spanish speaking, so the detective had told me about it, and she said that he said something about, oh, like he thought it was the devil and like things like
So
that.
he was on drugs. Well, that
But
makes
I think
sense,
I
I
think
guess.
he even said like, yeah, I knew it was police, but he
Yeah.
so so that was I don't
Wow.
know. It was that one. It was challenging. I think the harder part almost was like the after, because finding out certain things about the case after, finding out that he got released, like just those things, things in my department, um, just wasn't very fond of it. I mean, I remember, now I'm thinking about it, like there was something with IA, oh hey, we need to do a follow up with you. And then that was it. That's what they said to me. And I'm like, what did I do? You know what I mean? Like, and then by the time they finally sat me down, which was probably a month or two later, it was like, oh, we just wanted to ask you about this and this and this. And it's like, you had somebody on the edge of her seat for this time because I'm already dealing with this thing. And then you're telling me that, so like the internal process, just
Just doesn't.
wasn't
Yeah.
good.
And everything's so delayed. Usually it's like, I thought you were going to say they were checking in on you a month later because I wouldn't be surprised at that either. Like, how are you doing? Like, oh, you didn't want to check on me a month ago. So I wouldn't be surprised about that either. But
I will say the initial response was good. I remember, I think,
that's good.
I want to say a captain at the time had called me checking in, and I think he said he had updated me that the guy was charged. So that was before he was released. But yeah, after that, it was kind of like very informal. You don't really hear a whole lot. And
Yep.
that
Yep.
part I didn't care for. Um and then it goes back to, okay, well, the other guy, he was ready to come back to work right away. I was on the fence about it. I think I took a couple extra days, but there is that feeling of, oh, I'm supposed to be back. Like, the other guy's back. Like,
100%.
and looking back, that's what I would say that to someone. Hey, if you need more time, you take the time because the job will be there when you get back.
Yep.
Unfortunately, sometimes you'll have coworkers that are like, "Oh, really? Like, you took more time," or then you may hear crap about it. It's unfortunate. It's the way it is. But at the end of the day, you have to take care of yourself. You have to take care of yourself before you help anybody else on the streets. Like, if you're not taking care of yourself, you're not going to respond well in situations, and then in your home life too. So I mean,
Yeah.
it'll come out to your family. I mean, at the time I was back living with my parents and trying to explain to them what's going on without even saying anything, because at the time it's, you can't talk about it until your interview's all done.
Right. Right.
All that, and that happened with my other incident as well. And so it's like, who do you go to? That's when you do want to have a therapist that you can
Right.
trust and be able to work on it. And that's just, I mean, I wish I had the therapist I have now then, because
Yeah.
I think it would have helped me much sooner and things wouldn't have drug on as long as they did. But I did get to the point.
I was going to say it is important though, like you said, like if you're going to work this job for 25 years, who cares if you take an extra day or two? And I tell people the same thing. Like, if you need a day off, like take the day. Like, it doesn't, I know in the moment it feels different, but when you look back on it, is one single person going to say, oh, I remember she took an extra day longer off than her no one. It feels like that in the moment, but no one cares.
If it were that person in their moment, they would probably do the same thing.
Yeah.
Or even if it's about vacation. If it's their
Take
family, they
vacation.
want to go on a vacation,
Yes.
they're gonna do it. They're not going to worry about you. They may give you crap about it, but at the end of the day, you take care of yourself, you work hard, you do what you need to do. I heard that early on too, because I would work a lot of overtime, get my comp hours, and take vacation, and then I'd hear, "Oh, well, you know what? I worked for it though." You know what I mean? It's, at the end of the day, you have to take care of yourself. I get it.
Absolutely.
Like, you're a rookie, you're just starting off, you're
So
probation.
what? If I have the time, I'm taking it.
If they're allowed, the sergeant says it's
Right, if it's
okay.
approved, it's approved. Because your family and your mental health and your life outside of work is so important. I mean, like you said, how are you going to be good at your job if all you're doing is working? I mean, you need time to yourself. So not only were you involved in that, you had some coworkers commit suicide. You do not have to tell us their names or anything. Was this newer when you were an officer, or was this later on in your career?
It was one officer, but I was on peer support at the time.
Oh yeah.
And I didn't know him very well, but I would say he was very friendly, you know, he was a good person to be around, good person to work with. And it was the craziest thing was that year it happened in September and I was participating in a first responder stair climb in San Francisco. So it was um I think the mission was basically like to honor all the first responders, you know. So you do the stair climb, you go up like I don't know, 100 floors or something. It was something pretty crazy, but I was raising money for it. And I remember him messaging me saying, you know, like, "Oh, hey, you know, what's this about? Like, maybe I'll come do it." And I kept encouraging him, like, "Yeah, come do it, come do it." And he didn't do it. And I want to say it was like a week or two later that he committed suicide. So it's just shows you like you never know what someone's dealing with because nobody expected it. Like it was what him, you know, because he's always like, "Hey, what's up, guys?" You know, and just you just never know what
So
someone's
sad. Yeah.
so. Um, that's like I said, I didn't know him well, but after that, again, I had met his parents and his fiance, and
Oh,
I tried to stay in touch with them. I it's probably been several months now, but I every so often I try to just say hi,
yeah. Yeah.
because I
I
always
love
thought
that.
about like, can you imagine if you were going through that as a family and you have all these people around you from the
Yeah.
department, they're all surrounding you, and then like what happens later? Like, do you still have that? And I'm not saying they don't, but I'm just
Yeah.
saying in general,
Yeah.
that's what I wondered. And I always thought like if it were me or something, I'd want them to be there for my mom and stuff like that.
100%.
So,
Yeah.
uh, but yeah, I mean, it was definitely another hard time.
Yeah.
I ended up, I was, I think I just took on a lot, and then I took on a lot, took a lot on with the peer support stuff.
Yeah.
I ended up, they asked me to step out of peer support, um, because they were seeing it like weigh on me in a sense.
Yeah.
Um, And looking back, I mean, it was at that time, I'm like, "What?" Like, I was because it meant a lot to me to do
Yeah,
that.
like, you took it personal kind of, like,
Yeah.
why? Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, at the end of the day, you do need to have a peer support team that people can go to, and so if it wasn't me, then, you know, then there's other people. But
Yeah.
definitely at the time, it's hard. Definitely, like,
Yeah.
wasn't wasn't the best, but, um a little bit before that, I knew all this stuff was weighing on me from patrol already,
Yeah.
and, I mean, there were I had been told, "Don't go in for any other positions until you're, 5 years on. 5 years, you have to have
Mm.
5 years on patrol." Then
Yeah.
not it's not a written rule, but it's just this is what they would tell me.
Right.
But after what I had been experiencing, I was like, "There's no way I need to take a step back from patrol," because, I mean, there had been another, like, officer involved shooting that someone was in, and I remember that night hearing everything, "Oh, shots fired, da, 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 da."
Right.
Like, you hear it, and then it's, like, almost like you're going through it all again for what you if you've experienced it.
Right.
So, um I lost my train of thought.
No, you're good. I was gonna ask you, do you have any advice for officers who have, like, been through whether it's an officer-involved shooting or a coworker committing suicide or someone that getting killed, like, in the line of duty? Seems like you've done a lot of, like, self-worth. I know that you gave advice to, do the outside therapy and all that, but what would you tell them, if they had to go back to work tomorrow and they just went through something? What would you tell them if they asked you, like, "I'm nervous to go back to work," or "I'm just," you know if they felt just, like, different?
Like, I mean, like I was saying about finding somebody you trust at work.
Yeah.
Uh, Definitely having a mentor if you can. I think that helps as well. I mean, I did have a couple of female officers that I still stay in touch with now
Mhm.
that I would, go to if I needed to. But it is a tricky position because people don't want to show their emotions, or if you show your emotions, you're almost like shamed for it. So that's why you have to have like your go-to people.
And yeah.
And yeah, and then like I said, leaning on friends and family because they're outside of, so they may not have the same understanding. But having those to talk to, even like, hey, I'm going back to work tomorrow and
Mhm.
I'm really struggling with it, and just have your outlet and find other hobbies too, because that was the thing. I went so gung ho on I need to train, I need to shoot, I need to do defensive tactics, I need to go PT, that I wasn't finding my own hobbies. So I
Yeah.
have a different outlet. So besides therapy, I mean, have your own hobbies that are outside of law enforcement. And it's okay to do the extra training, but still don't make it your complete life. Do things that help you decompress. Down the
Mhm.
road, it was like for me, it was like during COVID, I was started painting stuff. So
I love that.
but it was like because I had nothing to do when I was
Yeah.
working, and just yeah, have another outlet. Um,
When did you meet your husband? Because you're now married to a police officer. A lot of people say, "Don't date a cop." Um, how did you meet him, and how has how has it been married, dating a cop, and how has it been positive in your life?
okay, so we met in 2022. It'll be 3 years in July. We met on Hinge.
I love
So
it.
we did not meet through law
Okay.
enforcement.
Okay.
I will say, overall, I don't disagree with that advice about not dating a cop. Um, Not because of him. Totally, he is to me totally an exception. But
There's definitely good men in law enforcement and good men
are
everywhere.
good there are good men. I mean, it's anywhere you go at this point, it's hard.
Right. Right.
It's just I mean, even the dating apps for me, I would be like on it for a little bit and I'd be like, no, no, I can't. It just it's so bad. Um and the funny thing is he never put it out there that he was law enforcement.
I was gonna ask, so was it on his profile or no? Like, did you guys
Nothing.
sign up later?
It's not he's very private. He is not that kind of guy. And that's why part of why he's an exception because he doesn't flaunt it. He's not like wearing the shirts and, oh, hey, I'm a cop like everywhere he goes. He's not that. That's not his persona. So, um but I knew he was a cop because it's just like a really random story, but I randomly followed his sister before on Instagram and I had seen him on there. And so like she had posted.
That's that guy.
Oh, like, I know that's him. And, um, yeah, he was just different. I mean, like I said, the whole dating app thing, it was so annoying just you'd always get those, "Hey, how are you?" and blah blah blah. And yeah, he just he had a good conversation starter with me and it was like, "Oh, I'll take you out to dinner next week." I'm like, "Okay." And then I deleted actually like right after that conversation, the app. I was like, I'm gonna see where this goes. And then that's like I'm not the type to well, obviously we're married now, but I mean at the time, I wasn't the type to talk to a bunch of different people. So it's like, let me just hope for the best on this one. And that was it, honestly. Our first date, we were like, we did dinner and then we did mini golf and then we were like, let's go to In and Out. Like it was like a really long, date. I ended up talking to him about all of this stuff and more. And I would just put it all out
You
on the
had
table.
someone you could talk to who understood,
Yeah.
which is nice.
The funny thing is he said if he had known right away that I was a female cop, like he wouldn't
He wouldn't have. Yep.
he wouldn't
Mhm.
have dated me. He was like, "Nope, mm-mm." But he was like, "But we had already started to talk, and we were, like, hitting it off when you told me, so" Okay, well,
I love it.
uh,
I love it. Aw.
uh, but yeah, so, I mean, we hit it off, we started dating right away, like, we were exclusive, and from there, we just, he has a daughter, and, so we've been a part of each other's lives, all 3 of us,
I love
since
that.
22, and
Is he still active police
yeah,
officer?
yeah.
Okay, awesome. So tell us
So
about your career now. Tell us about what you're doing now.
okay,
And
so
how well, actually, tell us why you chose to left law enforcement.
I'm medically retired from a neck injury. Uh,
Okay.
so 20 April 2024. So it's been a little over a year since I'm medically retired. And then right after that, I got into background investigations for police work. Um, I was working for a company, and so basically, you do the investigation for the company, and then they forward the information to the agency, the hiring agency, and they determine what they want to do. I mean, there's some things where there's automatic disqualifiers. It's like, no, absolutely not.
Right.
But there are definitely less of those now than there used
So
to be.
interesting.
And I would say, I mean, the perks of it is it's like that connection that I have to it where it's like, oh, I did law enforcement and now I'm helping in this way to like hopefully get good people
100%. And you're reading their applications like, would I want to work with this person? Would I let this person work
work
with
with my
my
husband.
coworkers, work with my husband?
Yeah.
So I think that's
Yeah.
like important, you know. I
Important.
can't imagine someone doing that job having not been in law enforcement because I feel like, yeah, you have a special read on people.
Yeah. So I mean it's challenging. I did it up until we moved in a couple months ago, and I've taken a break from it. Maybe I'll go back in the summer. But it does take a lot of time. You have to be just like in law enforcement, attentive to detail and, seeing what their patterns are and everything else. Like you're really looking at all of it. Um,
What
to make
advice
sure-
would you give to someone who is putting in their application? And since you're someone who reviews those applications and those backgrounds, what advice would you give to someone who wants to become a police officer and they're about to like apply?
well, hopefully prior to all that, you've been on your P's and Q's because you need to have a good background overall. We're all human, we make mistakes, and agencies do understand that. But don't surround yourself with people who are making poor life decisions. Make sure you have quality people in your life. Um, all of those things are a factor, and some people don't realize that, because we're going to talk to those people who you have in your life. If you're dating somebody who's a felon, not, we might have an issue there. What's your decision making like? When you're putting in your application, be very thorough with your application, with everything you do. When you're talking to your background investigator, be respectful. It's crazy to me to think that I have to say that, but I can't tell you how many times people email me by my first name. Don't, ma'am, sir, this, all that. It's not there anymore. And I will send an expectation email saying, this is how you need to address me. This is what you need to respond within 24 hours. I shouldn't be babysitting you. So you should be proactive as an applicant. Everything you do, follow up. If you apply with an agency, you don't hear anything, follow up with them. If you have a background investigator, check in with them. If you don't hear from them, hey, is there anything you need from me? Um, because it's just not there. I mean, I've had like in the few that I've done, I've had a couple of good ones that did check in and things like that. It's so far and few between. these days. So I really wish there was a class. Hey, if you're
Honestly, yeah.
this is what you need to do. It's just not there. And I can't believe, like, it's crazy to me. Why am I hounding you to get your, supervisor's reference? You need to be asking them for it. Stuff like that.
Right. 100%. And let me ask you one more advice question because I wanted to ask you this before I got into this and I missed the question, but what advice, this one's important because I have a lot of people that listen who are Leo wives. What's some advice you can give to someone who's a Leo wife? Now, you've been a Leo yourself, but I have a lot of listeners who are just Leo wives and have never been in law enforcement themselves. And I really think it's such a hard job. And I give Leo wives so much credit and so much grace. But what would you say um, to them as a Leo wife, but as a former Leo?
I think that's helped me in that sense because I try to go back and put it in perspective.
Right.
You know,
Like, where was I then?
I remember, and so for me, being supportive of him, helping him wherever I can, whether it's, especially lately, I've been trying to really meal prep for him, make sure he has a lunch to take with him. Um, because if not, when you're a cop, if you don't have stuff with you, you don't have food with you, you don't have those things prepared, you turn to Taco Bell, Jack in the Box, things like that. And those things aren't good.
Girl, you called me out right now.
Well, you work nights. You work nights, so even more so it's hard. Um so being supportive of him, listening to him when he wants to talk about it. Most of the time he does likes to talk to me about it. And then I know in other cases they don't want to talk when they get home. You might just have to let that be. Um and just be supportive and realize like you don't really know what kind of day they've had. So doing your best to be supportive, being patient. They're not going to have the energy to do much when you get home. And even me, I remind myself constantly about that. Like I have to go, oh, you know what? Yeah, he's just worked 8 days straight. He's not going to have energy to do a load of laundry. I mean, I'm just saying, I always do the laundry anyway, but I'm saying like, you think something like that. Something is like, you might think, oh, it's so simple. But I do remember those nights or days, like, come home, you're so exhausted, and that's literally you wanna plop on the couch, and that's it. So just doing what you can to support them. And when you have kids, it is harder. Like I said, I have a stepdaughter. So there may be times where you're like, you wish, like, they could do more to help you or whatever, but at the end of the day, you have to put that perspective. Like, they just had a hard day. They could have had a really bad call. They could have been in a crazy pursuit. And then there's constantly line of duty deaths around us. So just making sure you're putting that in perspective as well. So something I try to do is even if we're mad at each other or whatever, I try to make sure he leaves with like on a good note because I always think about if he didn't come back. And so I don't want like the last conversation to be an argument. So I'm sorry.
No, you're so sweet. No, it's so important. And I feel like this is really good for my listeners because like you know how hard it is out there. And you made me cry. Um um I to leave on a good note, no matter what, because this job you never know what's gonna happen. And I just think that that's like the best advice you could possibly give. Like just never leave home upset
Yeah.
because any day, you know.
You can have your issues, and then write them down. Like I do that sometimes too. Is like I'll write thing or not even issues, but just maybe there's something I want to ask him or whatever, and I'm like, he's at work, like he's dealing with much bigger issues. So I try to just do that, and then I'm like, okay, then I try to talk to him when it's time to do that. I'm not perfect. I still sometimes I'm like, da, 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 texting him, asking him stuff, but
Yeah.
it's important too. Just put that in perspective. It's like the last thing he wants to deal with is like something at the house when he's off at work. So just try to, keep your day positive and, even if you're upset or whatever, even just sending a text in the morning, that's good. I still try to do that. And things change when you get married versus dating. So, you don't want to get too comfortable. You want to still make sure that they know that you love them and all that. So,
Oh, that was beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. He's very lucky to have you. It's important to have someone to come home to who loves you. And you know that on this job, and that's something money can't buy. So,
yeah.
do you have any final takeaways for us before we let you go?
No, I think like I was saying, I've said throughout is you can be so dedicated and passionate to the career. Most people are who are in it. That's okay. Just make sure you find your own hobbies, find your own passions outside of work, taking care of your friends and family, spending time with them. And we get busy, and then there's overtime and this and that. But just try to really prioritize those people. I mean, you also see the people who retire and then they pass away after they retire. They, have a heart issue or whatever. So just take care of yourself, take care of your body. And it's a long career. California, I mean, retirement age is 57. So most people are trying to do 30 something years. I mean, if I hadn't had medical retirement, I probably would have been doing, I think, 34. So it's a lot. So you got to take care of yourself.
Well, thank you so much for being here and all that you do, and for your husband for all that he does. I hope he's safe every day, and obviously you as well. And being a mom is so selfless, especially being a stepmom. And you're doing all amazing things, and he's so lucky to have you. So thank you for being here. And if anyone wants to go find you and connect with you, where can they follow up with you?
I'm on Instagram. There's not much on my account but dogs. So, but totally okay. It's
Love it.
black, white, and tan period crew. So just common spelling on all of them. Um,
And I'll link it.
yeah, yeah, feel free though, especially any ladies that are trying to get into the profession, or if you're a wife and you want to
Yeah,
pick my brain on it. I'm open to that. So, yeah.
I love that. You're gonna be a good resource to have for sure. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.